YouTubers, and welcome to another Doctor Who action figure review. In today's review, I'm going to be looking at the latest Dalek from Wave 3 of the 3.75-inch Doctor Who range, which is the classic Dalek with Mutant Scoop from the missing Doctor Who story, Power of the Daleks, Patrick Troughton's first episode. Now this is a very special review because this figure was very kindly donated to me by Chris Clark. For those of you who watch my 8th Doctor animations, you've probably seen Chris's name on the credits and in the description box for those videos, because Chris is the chap who does all of the new CGI sequences for those videos, and he's absolutely fantastic. So a massive thank you to him for sending me this figure. It's a really nice figure as well, so that was incredibly kind of him. So a massive thank you to you, Chris, and I hope you enjoy the review. So before we get started, let's begin by taking a look at the packaging. The figure comes packaged on the standard blister card featuring the TARDIS and the Series 8 version of the Doctor Who logo. A small insert inside the bubble tells us that this is a classic Dalek from Power of the Daleks, and that this is from the third wave of 3.75-inch figures. And the back of the card gives us a better look at some of the other figures in the new wave, as well as some of the time zone playsets. So out of the box, we have a very nice looking classic Dalek. Now the silver and blue colour scheme has always been my favourite with the Daleks, so I was very pleased when this figure was announced. Of course, this figure is also a variant that we haven't seen in the larger 5-inch scale. So let's have a quick look at the articulation. Because it's a Dalek, there's not going to be an awful lot to talk about. The head turns 360 degrees. It's not loose or anything. You can hear it's quite stiff. The eye stalk moves up and down as usual. This is fixed in firmly as well, not like with some of the 5-inch figures where the eye stalk would fall out. Moving down to the gun box, we've got ball joints on the exterminator gun and ball joints for the Mutant Scoop. And of course, like every other Dalek figure, it's also on 3 wheels. So let's move on to the detail. Well, let's begin by taking a look at the dome. So the first thing that we have to mention, which I'm sure many people have already noted by now, is the eye stalk has a pupil. Now, the pupils on the Dalek eye stalks were not introduced until the following story, Evil of the Daleks. And a lot of the promotional photographs of this figure actually didn't have the pupil. It was just a plain white eye. It's kind of annoying that this has happened, but looking at it, this isn't actually sculpted on, it's just painted on. So clearly there's been a bit of a cock-up at the factory. Either the wrong paint has been applied to the eye stalks, or the wrong eye stalks have been put on these Daleks. Who knows, it might change later on if it gets re-released again. Maybe it will be a running change that the eye will just have a plain white iris. But like I said, the good thing is it's not sculpted, it's just painted. So really, you don't even need to go out and get any paint. If you've got something like Tipex, you could easily just fill in that black circle to make it look more accurate. So it's irritating, but it's a pretty easy fix. And you can see that the rings on the eye stalk have been, again, very nicely sculpted. And actually the paint is very clean and crisp, there's no bleeds, so that's very good. Looking at the dome lights on the side, if you have a 5-inch Dalek of a similar model, so say something like the Power of the Daleks Dalek, the sound effects Dalek, these are generally a separate piece that's stuck on. Looking at this, it appears that this is all one mould. The dome lights here don't appear to be separate from the dome itself, and they've been painted with an off-white colour to show that it's different from the rest of the head. Moving down to the neck bin, you can see that they still have all the good texturing details of the wire mesh that goes around the neck bin. If I hold it up to the light, you can probably see it just slightly better, that this has all been very well sculpted. It looks like wire mesh. And again, if we move down to the shoulder sections, you can see that mesh has been sculpted and the paint has just been applied ever so slightly over the top just to make that mesh stand out. And we also have the solar slats complete with bolts down the side. Again, a very good sculpt, and all of the details are very nice and clear. Moving down to the Dalek gun, that's simple enough. It is just one piece of plastic. But let's take a look at this, which is the Mutant Scoop attachment. The length of the actual attachment is very long, longer than the standard plunger. I think the plunger would probably end sort of here. I don't actually have any other classic Daleks in this scale, so I can't do a comparison. But let's take a look at the detail on the mutant itself. Now, you're probably thinking, well, it doesn't really look like a Dalek mutant. It looks more like a bit of lettuce or kale or something. Actually, that's what it looked like in that episode. It did just look like a green blob of nothing. There are photos kicking around from the filming of this story, and obviously we've got the telesnaps as well. And that's all it was. It was just a green blob, these tendrils here, and it was on a sieve-like thing. The sculpt's quite good. It's very textured. You have these light and dark greens and this dark wash that really makes those textures stand out. And of course, you've got these sort of tendril-like things, which I guess you could say is the tentacles of the mutant hanging off the edge. If we just turn it around, we also have another mesh-like design at the bottom, and that gives it a sieve-like effect. Again, this is just silver, but with a dark wash that helps these details to stand out. Moving down to the skirt, not much to say here. It's just your typical Dalek skirt. All of the hemispheres have been painted in an accurate light blue colour. Unfortunately, some of the paint applications here aren't as good as on other parts of the Dalek. You can see here we've got some areas, not of paint bleed, but just where the paint hasn't been properly applied to the hemispheres. It's not too bad, but it's something to look out for. Also, something to note, there is actually a rather quite obvious circle around this. I imagine this is covering a screw or something. It's part of the construction of the Dalek. And that is something that I have noted with this figure, that you can see quite a few of the seams here and there. So not only there, but up here on the neck bin, you've got this rectangular section, which you can see is covering some part of the construction. And even on the dome, there's just a slight line which I can only imagine is from the moulding process. And just to finish off, the fender on the skirt is the thinner fender that was used on the 60s Daleks. Now, unfortunately, I don't actually own any other classic Daleks in this line. I know they've released the Genesis Dalek, and there's the Toys R Us 2 packs, which I'm sure I will get round to buying and reviewing eventually. But for now, here is the Dalek in comparison to two of the new series Daleks in this scale. As you can see, the new Daleks tower over the classic Daleks, which is accurate. The classic Daleks are a lot smaller compared to the new series ones. A lot of that is down to the enlarged bases that they're on. I'm sure if we put them nearer... Yeah, if it wasn't for the enlarged fender, it probably wouldn't be that much different. And just for even more of a comparison, here is the Dalek alongside the 12th Doctor. You really do get a sense of how diddy these Daleks are. It's something that doesn't seem quite so apparent with the 5-inch range. If you compare a standard figure of one of the Doctors compared to the Daleks, they don't seem to be that much different. But here, these Daleks seem absolutely tiny in comparison. So I don't know if Peter Capaldi's quite tall. I don't think he's that tall. But in this scale, these Daleks really do look very diddy in comparison. You kind of expect them to be at least there, but there's quite a size difference. So I don't know if that's accurate or not, but it does seem somewhat off to me. So overall, I really like this Dalek variant. It's nice to see a Dalek variant that is completely new, hasn't been done in any scale before, so it's not like you're getting the same old thing again. Of course, I'd like to see this variant done in the original 5-inch scale, but who knows if that will ever happen, probably not. But it would be good because, you know, we've got so many different Daleks. These should be appearing in stores now. I think Forbidden Planet have just put them up on their website as well, and these retail at $6.99. So thanks for watching this review, guys. A massive thank you once again to Chris for sending this figure to me. That was incredibly kind of you, Chris. Thank you ever so much. Thanks for watching this review, guys, and I'll be back with some more Doctor Who action figure reviews.